This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Green Bay Traffic Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission for Monday, May 17, 2021.
You know what? A lot of times this happens when someone has a computer and a phone open. Is there anybody that has a computer and a phone?
Not I.
Who's got the number 579? I can't read it. 832 at the end. 8579832.
I don't recognize that number.
Can you unmute yourself and tell us who you are? I mean, you guys can't have a meeting like this.
No, I'm wondering if I see there's a Terry Kilp and a Bill Kilp on. I wonder if they're calling from the same room.
Terry Kilp and Bill Kilp. So it's not coming from us.
Yeah,
Chair, Matt needs to mute everybody for it to go away. Okay, there we go.
All right.
Everybody unmute themselves and see if it works then now? Or do we need to leave everybody on mute and only one person talk at a time?
I have a suspicion. Maybe Dan, because Dan was having a hard time hearing and he has everything cranked up really loud. I'm wondering if potentially that could be the problem. I muted him just now and now the problem just went away.
Yeah, it's good now.
Yeah, no, I think Dan, you may have to phone call in. There's an issue with yours. Yeah, he can't even hear us. Dan, can you call? Okay, it says ask to unmute. Matthew, please unmute him temporarily. Is Dan calling through? I think I'm reading his lips and says he can hear me. Yes.
Dan needs to hit the space bar on his computer to talk.
Do you have his phone number? You can call him, Dave, or not? Or text him?
I just called him and I texted him and I can't read his phone. I'm trying to get him to look at his text.
Yes. Dan, call in.
Anybody lip read?
He can hear us. Nod your head if you can hear us. Nod your head. Yes, we can't hear you.
He's muted.
Can you call in? Dave Hansen, that's too close to the screen. Oh, that's funny.
There he just went.
But you kind of need him for a quorum, right?
We do.
Yes.
Okay, I'll mute myself. Alder Gerlach, we haven't started yet because there's a problem. So we're just trying to fix the audio problem, but you weren't here, so you don't know that that's what we're doing. So we haven't even started.
I'm using the card game anyway, so this is an improvement.
Great. Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hanson, I did not see that on the agenda. I am so sorry, but here I am.
Oh, no problem. I think this will be pretty basic. And plus we have Parks Department on as well, so.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, fine. I can hear you too.
Can you hear? Okay, we don't have any back noise at the moment, so hopefully we got the
Okay.
problem.
Well, that was strange.
Bad connection or something.
Delay. I don't know what went wrong. Okay.
All right, I think we're good to go then. Once again, I'll call to order the meeting of the Green Bay Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission for Monday, May 27th, 2021. We'll move to roll call under item B. Chairperson Keepers is here. Vice Chairman Dan Thino.
Here.
Alderman Craig Stevens.
Here.
Lieutenant Mike Sobiak.
Here.
Here, okay. We have a quorum, so we can move forward. Let's move on to item C. Approval of the Monday, May 17th, 2021 Traffic, Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission meeting agenda. Do I hear a motion to proceed with the agenda as it's stated?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion made. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item D, approval of minutes. Approval of the Monday, April 19th, 2021 Traffic, Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission meeting minutes.
So move.
Second, do I hear a second? Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. E, regular business. Initial request, consideration with possible action on the request by the Parks Department to modify the parking restrictions on Hillside Lane near Old Preble Park.
Do you want me to go first?
Yep. Go ahead, Dave. Yes. Or
Yeah, because we do have the Parks Department. We have a representative with us tonight, but I'll go ahead and kick this off. The Parks Department has been receiving some complaints from property owners near the park, and that they're basically saying there's not enough parking near the park, and there's some driveways I know that have been blocked at times. And as a matter of fact, and I know Alder Gerlach knows this because we just got done with some curb painting out in that area as well. And we got a couple little things we're trying to tidy up on that, but you know, that helps, but it doesn't necessarily take care of all the capacity issues that it comes down to parking. So there is some plans in the future to expand some of the parking, potentially even on site. But departments, and they have informed me that it may be years before the funding may be coming available to them, and that there's really no assurances that the Parks Committee is even going to approve of any of those plans at this time. So increase of the on-street parking, available parking near the park, should help alleviate the concerns. So we looked at the situation relative to what's nearby, and if many of you know, the far west side of Hillside Lane curves into Shane Street, and then Shane Street intersects with Main Street. And this is, Hillside is actually right behind that Pick and Save. That's probably, I'm guessing, 8 years old by now. Anyway, their truck traffic actually goes back there. So we were kind of questioning why there's this longer no parking here to corner zone that exists on that west end. And we thought maybe because there were some crashes or something like that, because there's a beam guard and some arrows and things like that. But so we really couldn't find out what exactly was going on with the reason why that was there. So my thought was, well, let's just make it as small as we can to accommodate the request to get some more on-street parking. It'll help the neighborhood. But at the same time, I don't want to make it difficult for the trucks to get in and out of there. So similar to the last meeting where I was showing you some of I did an auto turn analysis of getting out of there, and in essence, then looked at that and said, okay, we can shorten it up some distance. So that would be my recommendation. I can give you some of those exact numbers. So right now we have a no parking here to corner zone, Hillside Lane, both sides from Shane Street to a point 170 feet east of Shane Street. And we'd be looking at removing that and reestablishing a no parking zone both sides, Hillside Lane from Shane Street to a point 105 feet east. So we can shave off about 65 feet of that zone and make it safe for all road users. So that's DPW's perspective on it. And Corey Mim, who's a park planner, has joined us this evening, and I would encourage the traffic commissioners to listen to what the Parks Department has to say.
Yes.
All right, so I agree with everything Dave said. Definitely, we have had some concerns about driveways being blocked during like ball games and that type of thing. So having additional parking adjacent to the park would definitely be helpful with alleviating some of those concerns. We are currently working on a master plan right now to bring to Parks Committee and in the near future, but again, we're not sure when we will get funding to possibly be able to expand parking within the park. So this would be very helpful to help alleviate some concerns.
Good.
Okay, do we have anybody else? Alder Gerlach, do you want to speak to this or your item?
I would just like to ask a question for clarification, because we had a meeting. First of all, let me say, the curbs around that park are so bright yellow right now, you can hardly stand to walk down the street. It is gorgeous. We had a meeting in the park last Monday night, and there was a Little League game going on at the same time. And people pointed out to me that there was parking along Hillside that had never been available before. It looked like it had already taken place, like that sign had already been moved. They said, look at all the cars on Hillside. They never used to move the sign back. Is that wrong? Had it not been moved yet?
I have not issued any orders to do so.
Maybe somebody else did it. I don't know. Okay. So that will be as much help as we can get right now. I think that everyone will be very grateful to have that help. Having those curbs make people happy. There is a lot of legal parking in that area. There are a lot of cars when there's a ball game, but people do okay. It's not a crisis. And I appreciate the little bit of extra space we can get on Hillside. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Anybody
Chairman,
else?
Adoption of item 1.
Okay. Is there anybody else to speak to it, Dave, before we move ahead, or is that?
I don't believe so.
Don't believe so. Okay. All right. Do you want to read in what you're thinking about doing first, Dave, so Dan can?
Sure. It's a 2-part motion I'm recommending. A, to remove the no parking zone on both sides of Hillside Lane from Shane Street to a point 170 feet east of Shane Street Part B would be to establish a no parking zone on both sides of Hillside Lane from Shane Street to a point 105 feet east of Shane Street on a 90-day trial.
Okay,
That would
Dan,
be
do you
my
wanna? Dan, you made a
That'd be my
motion.
motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion been made, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Move on to item 2. Initial request, consideration with possible action on the request by Alderman Scannell to make the block on James Street between McDonald Street and North Broadway a no truck route.
How did you want to proceed, Chair?
Alder, do you want to speak first or you want Dave to go ahead?
I prefer Dave go ahead. I'd like to hear what he's got to say.
Okay.
Sure. Well, the request is to establish a no truck route on a segment of James Street as described. The city does not have what we would call a no truck route system. Rather, we have a heavy truck route system. So, I mean, we can always place no truck signs. I mean, we do in areas where we've had problems of trucks using non-truck routes as their way of travel. I mean, we've had those signs placed in various locations within the city, but our actually encourages, not discourages, but it encourages that if a truck needs to deviate from a route, that they take the shortest, most practicable route. So we can always do that. However, I don't necessarily think it's going to be illegal for some trucks to still use it because it actually still may be the shortest path. The other thing to consider, and I know I brought this up last time, was that Brown County has that segment of James Street actually categorized for oversized, overweight, and their high clearance routes. And these are, again, systems or routes that they had approached us back in, I believe it was 2018, which were, we approved of that at the time for them to move forward with that. It's up on their website. And I know that they use this information for coordination permits, through the DOT and their OSOW systems as well. So, right now it's, I guess I would technically say it isn't. It's on a no, but we don't really have a no truck route system set up. The only thing you can really do is if there was just a different way to make it a more practicable route to the port, because we can't cut off access to the port. I did get something back from Cole. I guess I could just maybe read it. It was an email when I had asked him what his opinion was of this, and in essence, he agreed with what I just stated. That they went through all this work to get James Street, but on that OSOW and high clearance route. But I'll just read in verbatim what he had responded to me with. This section of James Street provides a direct connection to Graymont Western Line's entrance exit and to a Fox River docking area that could be used to load unload OSOW freight. If trucks are prohibited on this section of James, it will allow for large vehicles to maneuver because they will now have to make turn the tight McDonald Street curves that you identified as in report last time that I identified in the April staff report. Most of this 2-block section of James Street is occupied by industrial land uses. Is there a reason why the alderman wants to prohibit trucks here and not the 2-block section of Mather Street between Broadway and McDonald, which is largely residential? After all, many of the trucks that would be ordinarily using James Street would likely use Mather instead. That's really all I have at this point in time. So I guess I'll just sum it up. Well, we just heard what the county's perspective was, and that we really just don't have a no truck route system. That it doesn't exist.
Okay, well, Evan is it's not really the trucks aren't really using James Street to go to Graymont. They're using that James Street to go down to Broadway, and then turning onto Broadway and then to Mather. That's the kind of try to reroute or, deter. So we don't really, people have been watching this and studying this, a lot of the neighbors, and it's not really so much truck traffic going Broadway to James to Graymont. That doesn't seem to be any traffic at all. It all seems to be coming down James to Broadway. So if those trucks, instead of coming just down James, would go a block down McDonald to Mather, there's actually fewer residents. That's actually more. I mean, the only thing over that way residential would be the homeless shelter, and that would be preferable to the block on Broadway, which is far more. You have children and families, and it's active all the time. Whereas the homeless shelter, you only have a population that's there certain hours, and then the rest of the time the population is, they need to not be at the shelter. So if we can figure out ways to keep trucks from going down James to Broadway, that's what we're looking to try to do. And anything, staff can come up with is super duper with that. And if we need to go to the county, I could pass this on to the county supervisor for the area. He's been involved in this too. If you think that would be helpful for him to take that to, is there a similar type committee or commission for the county, David, that would look at this if a supervisor brought this, or how would that look?
Well, let me clarify one thing,
okay,
before I answer that question, because he did mention that more of the concern sounds like it's coming from McDonald Street or those businesses there, going westbound onto James, stopping at the stop at Broadway, and then taking a left or going south. So the thing with that is that these routes that we're talking about, they're two-way routes. So like you said, they may not be coming in that way, but they're coming out that way. I guess I'm a little confused because that James would be the shortest, most practicable route to take if you're on the truck route system. I guess more namely Broadway, as you're going northbound, say if you're coming from where the bridges are downtown. You'd come through and you'd simply take a right on a James Street and go in there, and then you would leave and exit the same way. That I would consider would be shortest, most practicable route to the truck route. It would be the shortest, and like I said, most practical, which probably have the least amount of turns and stops. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Well, yeah, if I get I don't understand how that's the most short. I mean, if you go a block down James and then a block down Broadway, how is that shorter than going a block down McDonald and a block down Mather? It's the same distance.
It's actually longer. Let's just say that we have Graymont as an example, as your point of origin or destination, and they're leaving. They would go on to McDonald Street for a very short time and then go to James Street, wait. But if they would go the requested route, as you're stating, they would go south on McDonald, which is not a truck route. You'd have to add whatever that is, 300 feet there. Then they would turn by the shelter and go another 500 feet. So you got 800 feet versus 500 feet.
Oh, but you're not counting the feet when they turn from James to Broad. Oh, but Broadway is considered the truck route.
Broadway is a truck route.
That's how it's okay. I get it. So all the way down Mather is not considered the truck route. If they went all the way down Mather.
No, Mather east of Broadway is not a truck route.
Okay, now I get why you say it's shorter, even though, right. So if we could make that block of Mather part of the truck route, then that would alleviate that. It would then equal it all out.
Or potentially make it the shortest route.
Or potentially make it the shortest route.
However, we do not extend out truck routes without having some sort of connectivity. We don't dead end truck routes. That's right. Kind of what you're doing. If you would extend Mather Street that way, the way it is right now, Mather, that the truck route ends Mather, if you're going eastbound, it tees in at Broadway. So at least a truck can go left or right there. But if you send a truck down to Mather Street towards the shelter, technically you're dead ending them right there, even though you're forcing trucks onto a non-truck route is what you're doing.
Well, I mean, they're going to be making turns one way or the other. So if they went down Mather and turned down McDonald, or if they're going down, we don't want to, it's going the other way. So if they're going down McDonald and turning on Mather, they're going down James and turning on Broadway. I mean, they're making turns no matter what we do. And it would be that area, Mather and McDonald, those blocks make more sense for a truck route than that block on Broadway, which is more residential.
Right.
It's more industrial the other way.
I guess the other thing to think about, and I'm going to refer back to my report from last time. I mean, not only we'd be dead ending them without any connectivity coming out of there, but I've already identified the turning movement conflict at McDonald and Mather.
Oh, I thought it was further down that the problem was. Okay.
Every turn had a problem.
Every turn. I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay. So to turn, was that a turn from Mather to McDonald that's difficult, or McDonald to Mather that was difficult?
Both.
Both. Okay. Okay. Well, now how much would the county, how much should I, as far as making that a truck route, if we wanted to try and make that the truck route and make any infrastructure changes for that to make those turns more navigable, would that involve us or the county or both?
City.
City? Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not sure you really want to be buying real estate and buildings and businesses, because that's what it would take.
Oh, well, that's what I was going to ask is what would it take to make those more navigable?
Yeah, I don't have the report in front of me from last time, but I do know that there was building corners that were being encroached. There was curb ramps that were being encroached. So in order to make those turns, to modify those turns, it would involve some real estate acquisition.
Okay. I mean, just eyeballing it, it doesn't seem like those streets are any wider or narrower than James Street, which is, I'm not questioning you. You got you do more than the eyeballs. Then I guess I would I don't know if there's people here who'd like to talk about this. Is okay, I guess they would. So if you could make a motion, open the floor to get some of the residents' input, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, we can I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules so we can have interested parties speak. Do I hear a motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
I second it. Again.
Okay, motion made and second, open the floor. So Dave, what information do you need, or do you know who wants to speak? I see one party looks like raising their hand.
I see two, three. I see three. Richard, Bill Kilp, and Terry Kilp are the three parties that I saw raised.
All right. Do we need to go in any order who speaks first, or?
There's no particular order. I would presume that Terry and Bill would maybe want to speak because they're of the same household. So I would think that they would want to speak together or consecutive.
All right, go ahead, Terry and Bill. If you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks for giving me another opportunity to speak in front of you guys. So we're right on the corner of James and Broadway, and the trucks coming from Graymont are turning right in front of our house. Now, there's already almost 137 trucks a day driving past our house, and not just our house, but the 13 or 12 of us that are affected by this particular issue. I mean, there's a much bigger issue going farther down, but the one we're talking about right now affects 12 houses, right? And so some of the trucks are already going the way that we're suggesting. There are times where I'm standing on my porch, there's a truck coming up James Street, turning onto Broadway at the same time that there's a truck flying down Mather, crossing Broadway and going exactly the route we're talking about, and sometimes coming the other way back. So they're already, some of them are going that way, but I'm gonna guess that the reason that they're coming up James Street and turning onto Broadway is they don't have to stop. Well, they have to stop, but they don't have to wait for traffic. If they go down to Mather and they come up, when they get to the corner of Broadway and Mather, they have to wait for oncoming traffic. So it's an inconvenience, is what it is. So anyway, that's the situation. And when they did the study, the trucks that were in front on our block, and then they also counted the trucks between James and Phoebe. And there's more trucks on our block because of the trucks that are coming from James Street. So our block gets it the most. That's the situation. I think that I don't think I can add much more. Terry, do you ever? Sorry, she didn't want to talk. But she worked at NEW, so she can tell you how that would affect NEW as well.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Chair, just for order here, we need to get names and addresses for all speakers.
Okay.
Terry Kilp, 719 North Broadway, corner of Broadway and James, as my husband Bill just said. Yeah. Okay. With Graymont trucks and every other truck that comes up, going west on James and turning south on Broadway in front of our house, practically almost every time comes up the curb on the corner, which is very dangerous. And it sounds like it's coming right through them. Next, the same thing, working at the shelter, those same trucks are going straight down Mather, the same way and left on McDonald. So I don't know what the difference could be. That same route, they're going right around the block, right around the block. The only reason they come up James and turn on Broadway is because they don't have to stop on Broadway. So that's the difference there. Why there are big semis and gas tankers coming up James and going on Broadway is another question altogether. Now, as far as it affecting the shelter at all, there are 70 residents there right now. I'm sorry, but we live here permanently. So this is affecting us morning, noon, and night. Something has to be done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have one other speaker. Is it Richard that wants to speak to this item? If you want to unmute yourself, give your name and address, Richard.
My name, Richard Perrins, 1402 Kellogg Street. I am calling in. I had no other idea how to address this committee other than to attend the meeting, but it's an unrelated item, so I don't know how you deal with that.
Oh, okay. You'd have to probably talk to Dave to get on the agenda. We can't just take an item if you're not on the agenda.
I wish my alder people and everyone else that I've contacted would have given me that information.
No, I'm sorry that you have that, but if you want to contact your alder or contact Dave.
How do I get a hold of David?
Dave, you want to give him your phone number?
Sure, 448-3100.
And it's David Hanson.
If I recall correctly, I know that there is one alder that has reached out to me, and I believe he mentioned your name. So I think that there's actually some sort of a request potentially coming at the next meeting. So I don't know if that.
Yeah, no one's let me know that. This is a very cumbersome process. Zoom has not made it any easier. So
have you talked to Alder Brunette?
I've talked to, yes, I know both Alder Brunette and Alder Stoyer, who is my alder. And
the request is coming forward.
Yeah. So I'll call you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Anybody else wish to speak to the item? If not, I will entertain a motion to go back to regular business.
Motion to close the floor.
Motion made to close the floor, back to regular business. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, we're back to normal business.
If I could, Dave, when we did the study, did we do a count of truck traffic from Mather down the east side past Broadway to see how many trucks are using that route? Do we know that?
Yeah, I did. I think I had 5 or 6 locations that I counted. Yes.
Okay, maybe we can. I don't remember that on the site. I'll double check. But if it is, if we do have that info, that might be able to help us determine whether that. I mean, if trucks are using it, maybe we can figure out a way to make that a viable, make that the route to be used.
If you want, you know, the study itself should have that information.
Okay, I'll.
And if there's not enough clarity, I mean, you know, I only put it what I think is relevant information for the report, because we have, you know, we get a lot of data in.
Yep.
You know, but if you're looking for additional information, say you look at the report and say, well, this is all good, but do you have that? I mean, you know, feel free to ask me questions. I mean, and if I have the data, you know, obviously I will share it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess I would just like to see if we could hold this item if we can't act on it now, just to see what other, to really give it a good look and check every possibility of how we might be able to make the change to go down McDonald to Mather and as a V route instead of James to Broadway, because that would definitely, as far as being a route that's less habited, that would definitely be the way to work it. That would make a difference for the residents in that area and the development of that area. So if we could really go over that and figure out what it would take, what it would need, and how much it's being used, and if that could be used to justify making the change or doing whatever we do to need to make the change. If we could just look at that further and rack our brains. I know you've gone over this a lot, Dave, but if we could rack it over one more time and see if there isn't any way at all to make that change, I would appreciate it.
All right. Well, Dave, you've done one study. What's your thought on how to proceed with this request? I'm not sure. I mean, we've hashed it out or had the request already, so I'm not sure what direction to go, to be honest.
Right. You know, sometimes you have to just look at where is, I mean, how can I say this? Right now, our ordinance for truck routes, the thing that allows them to travel on James Street is because it states if a truck deviates off a heavy truck route system, it shall take the shortest, most practicable route. The only way that you could ever change something like that is if you change the overall ordinance to somehow, and I don't know right now, talking off the top of my head, what that language would be. I don't know, but that right now, when I look at it, that would be where the violation, or I should say lack of violation, is occurring. And to make it a violation, you'd have to change that ordinance to do that. That's the first thing. But I don't think we're going anywhere unless we get county and DOT concurrence about moving their OSOW and their high clearance OSOW routes. If you can't get that, it's kind of dead in the water, at least on our end. And we, you know, I don't have any power as an agency to tell them what to do with that. That's not, that I can't do that. And I think Randy was probably more on the right path when he said maybe we should get the county supervisor involved and find out what is their equivalent of the city's traffic, bike, and ped commission at the county level to potentially make that change, which would again involve discussions with the port, with Dean Hain, and with Cole Runge. But I've already expressed what Cole's response was. So we already know what Cole's response was. And what I got out of that is he didn't sound like he was in support of it, and he gave a legitimate reason why. But again, like I said, you really need to talk to the county, and the county has to actually get approved at the DOT because they coordinate with their OSOW system in Madison as well. So If you can get that moved, I mean, maybe it gets moved to Alexander. I don't know. I don't evaluate the routes. I don't know what their criteria is. So potentially Randy, if you talk to, is it Seaver, I believe?
No, it'd be Freeburg.
Freeburg, okay. Yeah, right. Yeah. He would probably be able to have those conversations then at whatever committee that is that gets that changed. I don't know what that committee is.
Okay, I can do that, and I can also talk to legal about maybe looking at the ordinance. I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't hurt. I can do that. I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but I can certainly do that too. And I'll talk to Freeburg, and I guess we need to start with the county, and then we'll see where we end up.
Right.
So, all right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So for this motion, do we want to receive and place it on file at this point, Dave, or is there refer to staff for down the road, or how? What's your suggestion for how to handle the request?
Well, it's my understanding, based off what I just heard Randy say, is that it sounds like he's going to take some initiatives at the county level.
Okay.
And with our legal department. So I think it's kind of in his hands. I don't really know what I can do because I can't change the ordinance with this.
Right. I don't know if it matters. I mean, I could, if we received and placed on file, I can always bring in another.
You can bring it back.
So I don't know if you want to hold. I don't know if it makes much difference either way.
Yeah,
we got to get things done before any action can be happen. So whatever you.
All right. Why don't we? You know, it's probably not what the residents want to hear at this point, but I think we need to receive and place on file, and you do some more work on it, Randy, and see where you can take it, because it's, I feel for them living there and have the truck traffic, but you know, we've done the study. I'm not sure what else, as Dave said, we can do from the city level at this point. So let's go with that. Do I hear a motion to to receive and place on file?
Mr. Chairman, I'd so move.
Okay, motion made. Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Initial request, consideration with possible action on the request by the parking division to modify ordinance 29-203 residential parking districts to match the current procedure for residential parking permit zone vehicle registry.
This is more of kind of just cleaning up some of the ordinance that was just kind of stumbled upon, and we just looked at and just said it was old, because the old system for the residential permit parking required, I believe it probably started with a hang tag and then it went to a sticker system. But that system has changed now, where we actually have a database and an app that the parking utility folks use when they can go down any street that has those now, and these cars don't have to have these stickers any longer in the windows, but they can look it up just to see if they're in our active database. So it's really just more of just cleaning it up, because it's an antiquated reference right now to displaying a permit. So in the background of the agenda packet, you will see I had basically what I want to do of ordinance. Well, this is just my recommendation. I'll just read it to you. Is to delete the ordinance 29.203 Class B park violations, section 13, residential parking districts, and replace it with the following text. 13 residential parking districts. No vehicle shall be parked in a residential parking district unless the vehicle has an active residential permit. That's the key right there. Has an active residential permit. We're replacing the words display a valid residence or visitor's permit. And I'll continue. Or the vehicle is a service vehicle and its occupants are actively rendering service to the residents in the area. So it's working ordinance, that's all.
Okay, do I hear a motion of recommendation?
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 4, initial request, consideration with possible action on the request of Alderman Scannell to change the 2-hour 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday parking to 3-hour 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday parking on the east side of Van Buren Street from Cherry Street to Pine Street.
This is really more of a, the neighborhood really, I think, to make the decision. We already have 2-hour parking there. And if they want to have a little bit more time, it really is not any different for us. It's just that we just have to enforce it slightly differently. It's really no issues on our end. And, it's just one of those things that, just want them to be aware that if, 3-hour pertains to everybody. So there potentially could be someone that works by and so, they go, oh, well, 2 hours didn't work for me, but 3 hours does. I can at least get it up to break and then move my vehicle or something like that. So it's just, I just want to just be very open on that, that potentially could occur. Not saying it will, but anytime you extend out the length or duration of a parking zone like that you're opening yourself up to potentially someone else parking there.
Alder, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, this is coming from the residents. It's becoming, the Whitney townhouses and everything, and the apartments there. There's a lot more residential, and the townhouse. So it's growing up residentially, and it's coming from them. They'd like to have a little more time for their guests to park, and so that's why it's coming from the residents, and they'd like to see that change. So that's why I put it.
Chairman, I move approval.
Motion been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 5, initial request, consideration with possible action on the request for Alderman Scannell to change the speed limit on Broadway from Augusta Street to Mather Street from 25 to 15. Dave?
You guys know the drill. Any speed study or change of speed zone by state statute shall be accompanied with an engineering study. That said, I want to kind of look at the practicality of something like this. We don't have any 15 zones on just, regular long-term 15-mile-an-hour zones other than like alleyways. We all know the school 15 mile an hour when children are present, when we have a couple of flashing systems that are set at 15, just like during school times, but that's typically where you'll see that. So taking it down to 15, I guess we're not really sure why the request is there. And I think that this is maybe something that I would like to at least get the opinion of our police department, because any change in speed zone, especially if it's action, typically means that enforcement could be a little bit of a challenge, at least at minimum at first. So I'd love to hear the opinion of our traffic lieutenant.
Yeah, having a permanent 15-mile-per-hour zone, which I think there's only one in the city, which is by Bay Beach main entrance, which is just on that curve of by Bay Beach. There's no other 15-mile-per-hour speed limit zone throughout the whole city that's permanent at any time. I think, I don't know I don't believe there's an issue with accidents in that stretch of roadway that would signify a reduced speed limit, or if it's an issue with noise from the trucks. But if you drop the speed limit to 15, it's going to be very hard for people to do 15. It's hard to get them to do 25 the way it is. And I think if you would expect people to drive 50 miles per hour, even on a couple block stretch, I don't think it's going to happen. And you can do all enforcement in the world, and I don't think that people are going to realistically drive 15 miles per hour, especially with the trucks on the.
Yeah, another thing I'd like to add as well is, because I've done a number of these studies in my career, and one of the things I do know that are in the regulations, or I shouldn't say regulations, more the guidelines that DOT actually puts out, because they go into a pretty detailed methodology on how to do this. But one of the things that they're sticklers on, and I wholeheartedly agree with, is that they do not recommend to go short areas, to just drop your speed limit and then all of a sudden go faster. I mean, like I said, the only place you really ever see anything like that is going to be in the school zone, but that's where you have these huge, very short-lived peaks, and they're gone, and then the condition's gone, and go back to whatever the regular posted speed is. But to do this 24/7, 365, and just a number of blocks here is very atypical. And I think from an enforcement perspective, and I'm not an officer, but I work with these guys quite a bit, as Mike knows, and sometimes putting a speed limit that is going to be tough for people to drive, because I know as an engineer, when we sample these speeds, 85th percentile is that number that we look at, and that's what we call the comfortable speed, what people feel safe and comfortable driving. And in this segment, I don't think we're even going to come close to 15. So I can tell you right out of the gates, it would be very difficult. That's been our experience, is that if you set that speed limit way off from the 85th, it's going to be an enforcement challenge. But getting back to my initial point, nothing can be done other than referring it to staff for study. Do know that when these reports are done, we're not necessarily saying we're evaluating for 15. We are looking at this thing in context. We're looking at it with all these other roads. We're going to look at roadway features, driveway spacing, roadway widths, curvature or lack thereof, and we make a speed recommendation. We don't say yes or no to whatever the request is. The speed study is there's a methodology to it, and we come up to a speed. So I mean, and we all have those discussions involved, like on Webster. So we know how these can get, they're emotional, I know, to some people, and but when it comes to our department, we have to give an objective type of response.
Alder, did you have a comment on your request after hearing?
I don't know if a speed study would really, because really all those technical things, I don't know how it would stack up. The main reason, again, is it's a very residential area and the high truck traffic. So they were hoping that maybe if we could reduce the speed with the trucks, and I think that's more the issue than any other kind of traffic, that would make the area much safer. If they can't, if we can't reroute the trucks, what can we do to try and make that street safer for families? So I think that's really the push here and the thoughts behind it. I don't know that comparing this area to any other area in the city really does anything or makes any sense. I don't think any other area in the city has got trucks going by their houses, every 5 minutes. This is a unique area, and this would be done just to address that unique situation. So I think the discussion has to happen around that. I don't think a study would really be, I think that'd be a waste of enough time, because it's really to meet the conditions of this area. So if it works, if it makes sense and works for everybody to do it for that reason, great. And if it doesn't, that's what we need to discuss, I think. So and I don't know if, again, you want to open the floor or not.
I could just add one thing to answer your question about the study. It's not a matter of choice, Alder Scannell. We're held by state statute. It's clearly in there that any change of speed zone, doesn't matter the classification of the roadway, who owns it or anything, it's required.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, well, I have empathy with the residents and their plight with the noise situation. I just don't see where bringing it down to 15 is enforceable. It's going to be violated constantly. If we really want to enforce it, we're going to have to send a police officer there every day. Again, I have empathy with the situation that the alder and his constituents are facing, but I think this is a very unpractical solution to the problem. I therefore would move to deny the request.
All right, we do have one. Bill wants to speak to the item, so we should be fair and let him speak. So let's entertain. I would take a motion, suspend the rules, allow Bill to speak to the item quickly. Do I hear a motion in fairness?
So moved.
Second, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and second, suspend the rules. Bill, yeah, well, briefly, if you want to comment on this item, go ahead.
Sure. Bill Kilp, 719 North Broadway. This is not a noise issue. Noise is only a portion of the safety issue. A truck going 25 miles an hour that weighs 80,000 pounds takes more than 50 feet to stop. You guys will listen to us when a kid runs out in front of one of those trucks and gets killed. Because if that's what it's going to take, that's sad. This, you can't compare this to any other place in the city. I don't know of any other residential area like this that has 137 trucks a day, one every 5 minutes on an average, driving down the street. Now, there is an alternative route. The majority, we've talked about this in the other meeting, that the majority of the trucks that we're experiencing are coming from.
We need to limit your comments to the speeding date, or Bill. I mean, we've addressed the other issue. We heard where we're going with that. And I empathize with you. I wish there was more we could do as a committee.
I wish you would come and sit on my porch and witness.
I don't think I need to. I can feel it.
Speed issue. All right, let me address the speed issue.
I can hear you. The speed issue, you need to keep your comments to that.
Okay. I believe I did address the speed issue in telling you that a truck to stop going 25 miles an hour that weighs 80,000 pounds is going to be almost impossible if somebody runs out in front of it. Now, the idea of the speed issue, there's so much more to this than what you guys are, yes, you empathize with me. Thanks for that. What I would like is for you guys to come up with a solution to this problem. Why am I the one that's having to come up with all of these solutions only to be turned down? I'm not the only resident. This doesn't just affect me. This affects 37 houses. When these trucks come down Broadway, there's actually 13 blocks of residential area that they're coming down between Citizens Exchange and the end of Broadway. Whereas if they went the other way, there would be no residential area. So the speed issue for us was, and quite frankly, a way to deter the trucks. I was hoping that if they had to slow down to 15 miles an hour, they would use their heads and take the route that's shorter and that's not going through 13 blocks of residents. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Bill. Let's move back to regular business. Entertain a motion, go back to regular business.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're back to normal business. I wish we had a better answer for the neighborhood. I don't know, listening to the experts, and Bill, I know you're listening yet, probably. You're living it every day. I'm not sure what to tell you as the chairman of the committee, what else we can do. We've looked at it from the angles that the committee is allowed to do. So I don't know if any of the commissioners or Dave have any other comments, but I'm not sure what else to tell the neighborhood there.
Like Dave said, any speed limit change has to come with a study. And one word of caution is if he studies this and finds that all the conditions favor a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, it's a slippery slope. Do we have them do a study and recommend a higher speed limit? I think that would just outrage them more. So I'm apt to just decline the proposal, and instead of referring it to staff for study, because it might have the opposite impact that they're looking for.
Mr. Chairman,
I have a question for the officer.
Yes, go ahead.
For the lieutenant.
Go ahead.
So have you been monitoring speed along this stretch?
I don't have any numbers in front of me. I can have a speed board put up and see what the speeds are. I don't know if Dave has any speed studies recently for that stretch of roadway.
I believe when I classify, I can pull speeds as well. I probably do have them.
Just wondering if we do need to monitor that through the police department.
Yeah, we could put speed boards up there in the near future and see what the speeds are. But if they're requesting it drop down to 15, you know, if it would go to 15, most people, I think, are not going to drive 15 miles per hour. You'd be setting an unrealistic speed limit that you know people are just going to violate. And I don't think that's necessarily safe. And I didn't pull any crash data for this stretch of roadway, but I don't think or don't believe off the top of my head that we have any serious accidents in that stretch of roadway either.
Anybody else wish to speak to this item?
But if we did,
go ahead, Craig.
I was just going to make a comment that if we put a speed board out there, we would.
You're kind of breaking up. We're not hearing you very well.
No, I said that if we put a speed board out there, we'll know the average speed.
Better, your voice. Okay. That's something we can do, Lieutenant, then?
Yep, we'll get them set out there probably this week yet.
Okay, all right. Yes, go ahead, Alder Gerlach.
This is not any of my business because I'm not on the commission and this isn't my district, but I've listened to this now at the last council meeting and this evening. And I just want to say that I have tremendous faith in the people involved in this situation. I think Dave Hansen understands traffic better than just about anybody. And I know two people on the commission. I know Alder Stevens and I know Dan Thino, and I know they are pulvers. And I know Alder Scannell, and I've listened to Bill Kilp speak twice. He's really a concerned citizen who does his homework and cares deeply. I just believe there is a solution to this problem. I know you haven't found it yet, but please don't give up on it. Please, I just hope you'll all commit to finding a solution. This really, really could be could end a terrible way. I know you folks can find a solution. I will do anything I can to help.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, I wasn't aware that a study had to be done, and I really don't think a study will be helpful or useful in this. I really thought we could issue and talk about it on those terms, but if to do a study and look at this stretch and compare it to other places in the city and so on, I don't think that would be appropriate or useful or helpful in any way. So I don't think if we have to do a study, I don't see that as being a good way to go.
Yeah, I guess on the part of, is there any other location like this is very unique? I've been hearing a lot of that. There's a lot of unique areas in this city, and I can tell you that there's one location that's right by a bus company that probably gets that number of buses that go by it in about 1 to 2 hours every weekday. So, and it's not even a truck route. So I empathize, yes, but I'm also saying they're not the only one on this planet. So, and in this city, there are pockets of very unique traffic locations that are deviating legally off of the truck route. It happens all over the place in this city.
Well, if you think it'd be worthwhile, I mean, I'll rely on your expertise if you think it's beneficial.
I'm afraid what you might find out with that study is Lieutenant saying that it might deem it should be a higher speed than what it is. I'd be cautious about wishing for it to go down when it might go the other way. So
yeah, and to go on what Mike was saying earlier, you know, what part of anytime you're going to look at a reduction on speed from what the state statute kind of pockets it into, because that's kind of how it is. You started off by there's different types of roadways, and then these are the ranges of speed. And one of the things that will let you drop down into a category is going to be safety issues. And what Lieutenant Sobiek had said, and I'm with him, I'm not aware of a crash problem out there. And again, I get it. We hear this all the time on almost every street, that there's going to be a kid killed, and are we going to wait till then? If I did that at every request location, we'd have speed limit 15 miles an hour in every street. Not realistic. And we can't set precedences like that in the city.
All right, I think we've hashed enough on this item.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a motion on the floor. It hasn't been seconded yet.
Yep. Receive and place on file, Dan?
Yes, if that's preferable to deny. I would move to receive and place on file.
Okay. A motion made. Motion's been made to receive and place on file, and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
But I think the speed board would be beneficial all the way around, though.
Yeah, we'll still put.
You can do that, Mike. Okay. All right. So, are you in agreement with the proposal or the item then, Craig? Would you vote?
Oh yes, aye. Sorry.
Okay.
I don't know if I said aye.
All right. I wasn't sure if I heard it. So, okay. All right. We're good on that. Let's move on to item 6. Initial request, consideration with possible action report by the traffic engineer and the follow-up evaluation of the flashing signal operations at the intersection at Dousman Street and Gray Street. Dave, go ahead.
Yep, I was just unmuting and grabbing some notes here. So, as you know, I had brought forward that informational item. I believe it was at the January meeting. We started our trial of flashing a red signal at Dousman and Gray on February 1st. So we've, the 90-day trial, although it wasn't motioned for that, that's what we did administratively to how a 4-way stop would work at this location. We did some follow-up evaluation. So in essence, what I do is I collect data of the traffic counts, and then I also look at, is there been crashes? How is it operating? How is it operating under the new traffic control method? And so I looked at the warrants again. So the signal warrants still continue to not be met. And when it comes down to always stop, it only met it for the simple reason of the type of crashes that we've been preventing. And I guess that goes to probably the last point here that I have, is that we have had some crashes, but this is to be expected anytime you have a significant traffic control change. So when I looked at the type of crashes and the frequencies and when they happened from the onset of this, did not surprise me. And as suspected, there was no injuries, there was no fatalities, very minor property damage only on any of these. And if you remember, the primary reason that I made this recommendation was that we've had fatalities at this location. We've continued to have serious injuries every year at this intersection. And this is something that we need to stop. So the trial so far, like I said, it's almost 4 months in, and it's been successful. So I am making a recommendation as follows. Since the trial was successful, the city should permanently change the Dousman signal from signalized to an always stop. And I'm looking for 2 motions. Motion to remove the traffic control signal at Dousman Street and Gray Street, and a second to establish an always stop condition at Dousman Street and Gray Street. There's no need for a 90-day trial. That's what we just did. So basically go on the next council report and become permanent. And by doing so, I think fiscally this is a good move as well, because there was a project that's about to take place that potentially we would have had the need to replace this traffic control signal if the impacts were high enough, which would probably range for about $200,000 estimate. So not only would we be saving taxpayers of the city some significant dollars, The annual maintenance fees, electricity, etc. My electrician's not having to go out there and fix these knockdowns that have been happening from these crashes. And most importantly, people are not dying and they're not going to the hospital, not being seriously injured. So I think it was a success, and I'm asking the commission to move forward with those two motions if they agree so.
Make a motion to move forward.
Here a second?
Second.
Motion been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, good. Good work on that problem, Dave, to solve that, hopefully long term. 7, initial request, consideration with possible action request for Alderman Stevens to review and or create bylaws for the Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission. Who wants to go first, Dave or Craig? Or?
I can go first. There's not much to talk about, okay. So I'll go first.
All
so,
right.
As we all know, we're down 3 commissioners. So it was brought to light by Dave that we're kind of in a crisis mode. And so we started reviewing bylaws and ordinances, and they come to find out all we rely on is our city ordinance. So we thought it would be best if we brought it forward to possibly draft additional bylaws that Traffic, Bike, and Ped could follow, and some type of draft to look at in the future, so we don't come into these type of issues again. Right, Dave?
That is correct. Yes. Yeah. As we all know, Bridget is no longer with us. She put in a resignation a week ago Friday. And once I learned of that, of course, I wished her well in her endeavors and thanked her. But that meant when you do the math, we have 4 commissioners left over, meaning nobody can be absent in order to have a quorum. So that is where the term crisis mode came from. So now the good news is that I made, Alder Stevens and myself both had contacted the mayor's office and expressed our concern about the situation. And I can say with, I'm much happier now because not only we have 2 appointments coming on tomorrow's Common Council agenda, but we potentially have a 3rd person that's interested. And this all happened by, it was kind of a cooperative effort. There was someone that actually, well, once this happened, I basically took any opportunity I could through Zoom meetings at the city. And it just happened to be at our follow-up Safe Walk and Bike Plan meeting that we had the Flukies. I don't know, many of you probably know Peter and Tracy Flukie, who are some bicycle advocates in this area, very nice people, and very well respected. Well, they have a daughter named Melissa Flukie, and they kind of said maybe she'd be interested in it. And then there it was. She had submitted her application, and I had a meeting with the mayor midweek, and this was one of our things that we talked about, and he said he got the application and everything was good, and there was another one, and they shared that information with me. So all that's coming tomorrow. So hopefully many of you council members that are listening tonight, that hopefully there's no red flags. I didn't see any at all. They look like well-qualified candidates, and hopefully we'll have the next meeting will at least have a total of 6 members, and who knows, maybe within that time we get another one. So I just wanted to make that clear that we're on the right path that way. But to continue on with what the alder's requesting, when we had talked about it, I'm like, well, let me just see if I can find anything. I mean, I've been here for over 15 years now, and I had a conversation with Chris Pierlot, which I know a few of you know used to be in this same position. He's now over in operations, and he's been with the city a very long time. So I figured he'd be my one to find out any of this knowledge. And he came up empty-handed. He's like, we never really had any sort of written bylaws or rules, although the ordinance allows it. And, I thought that it would probably be a good idea to at least entertain the idea and have the discussion on whether there should be some. And, this is really, I'm just staff. So, I wouldn't see like you'd want to refer this to staff for study or anything like that, because this is your commission. It should be your rules. I can only make suggestions on what I think would potentially help. And I did jot down a few things, at least if this goes any further, that you should consider. First would be, I think we should really establish the meeting frequency, which I'm not saying we change it. I'm just saying that we at least solidify it. As in, we've been meeting once a month. Now remember, years ago, we met twice a month. So, I would think now would be a good opportunity. If you think that that's a good idea, we can do that. But I think meeting frequency should be part of that. I think an official adoption of the Roberts Rules of Orders would be good, even though I think we loosely use them, but I think we use them close enough. And I would think that that would be part of it. A third would be a discussion on whether or not we want to have membership residency. Do we require them to be City of Green Bay residents or not? Again, that's really, I think, the choice of the commissioners. I think that there's pros and cons to both. And as many of you know, when I first started, I was not even a resident. Even Mayor Schmidt made it clear to me that he wanted me to move into the city, and ultimately I did. But more reasons than just that. But no, I kind of had an outsider's perspective when I lived outside of the city, and now I live in the city and I have more of an insider's perspective. So I see both pros and cons to it. I would say having some sort of a requirement on attendance. One of the things that I've witnessed over the years as commissioners have come and gone, that there are some that are very strong about their participation and involvement, and that they care. They're involved in the discussion. And I know that we've had some that maybe didn't have as good of an attendance based off of whatever. They had some conflicts or whatever. But I would think at least bringing the subject up to encourage a higher percentage of that attendance. So if you're going to be there, like, do we require you to be at least 70% of the meetings? I'm just throwing that out there. But I think that it would be a good thing to have, just so people know that we're serious about this and we want their participation. And the last thing that I have would be diversity or cross-section of membership. I don't think it would benefit any committee, regardless of what it is, and this one included, if it was, I don't want to say stacked, I think it's a poor word to use, but I mean, I think it needs to have a cross-section of road users involved. And as many of you know, there used to be civil engineers, and dating years back, it was customary for the traffic engineer of the Northeast Region office over at DOT. That person was always had a place on the city's traffic commission, and we lost that over the years. I think some of that had to do with a lot of these people that just kind of lived, they had their own meetings that kind of went away, but we still maintained a theme of having at least one other civil engineer to be on the commission. And even though you might not think I like it, but I'd love to hear some of the differing engineering opinions that could come to the table. And I think I heard it tonight, by Randy and by some of the other people that are on this phone call that say, well, why aren't you just coming up with all these solutions? I think that having another engineer, or a minimum of one, being on the commission, I think that helped. When we had Mark Schuster on there, we had Ray Smith. I thought that they were good assets to it, and they could, it's almost like a QA QC for staff too. I mean, if they think that we're coming up with something wrong, or maybe we didn't look at something properly, it's kind of a checks and balances to the system. So I'll leave you with those 5 points, if indeed you even want to move forward with this. But I didn't want to come empty-handed, and I know I've had a lot of experience being your technical advisor and representative from city staff. So with that, I guess I don't know. That's really all I have to say. I mean, if you have questions, I'll answer them. But I'm really just more looking for discussion and hopefully a good cross section overall.
No, I think you're on to something good there, Dave. You know, stated bylaws, and I think everything you mentioned is good stuff. Just one thought. I mean, when I was, and I've been on a couple of years or whatever, we had always seemed to have somebody, and I agree with you. I know nothing about engineering myself, so it's always nice to have somebody from DOT or somebody that understood that side of things. And we've had that previously, and it seemed like you had an inroad to DOT or somewhere where we had Chuck and Mark and Brian at one point, I think, were some of the names. How do you tap into that pipeline again? Or, I mean, do they just have different agendas at DOT, or is it possible they, or countywide? I mean, Ray was county, right? If I remember right.
Yeah, Ray came from Brown County, and then he was a consultant, and then
okay.
I've actually done that, Matt. But I have a feeling that maybe COVID had something to do with the lack of participation. Just the world was turning so much, and I think maybe, some people think that they don't know, maybe they rushed to a meeting in person and things like that, and they just kind of said, I'm just going to let the storm right up. Because I actually sent out I thought it was a well-crafted email. I put on my marketing hat. Many of you know I was a consultant before this, so I did my dog and pony shows too. And at the end of the day, I got 0 responses, and I sent it to a lot of people, and I know a lot of people in this industry. So, and this is nothing that you guys can do probably about it, but I know that not having any compensation for the time that you participate, that could weigh in a factor. I mean, people's time is precious, and they have to make decisions with that. And, I mean, I think this is a good thing for someone's resume to be on the commission. I think it's an awesome thing to have. But for someone that's seasoned and really is a busy person, when you don't offer them any money to do it, I guess it's just not as much of an incentive. So, and again, I have no idea how that even barking up that tree. Maybe I'm out of line with it. I have no idea. It's just something that crosses my mind, because I just know how it is. I'm spending my time doing this, but I'm also I'm not getting paid. I'm getting comp time for it, so it's, we're all getting some sort of, something out of this. So I that's all I really have. I've tried to go out to the professionals, and I haven't gotten any feedback.
Okay. I just think that's a good avenue. I like that avenue because, you've got the injury hat, but to have somebody kind of supplement and help you with that, I think would be a great asset. And like I said, I think we got a good cross section to a certain degree, but the technical skills are, not a knock against anybody who's on the committee right now. And I'd be the first one to raise my hand. I have no technical skills for some of the stuff. I'm just an interested citizen of Green Bay who wants to, help out a little bit. And that's my goal of why I'm on here once a month. It's not a great time commitment, and never felt I have to be compensated. It's just my give back to the community, which I think probably people who are on meeting night, that's why they're here right now, why the alders are here. I mean, they want to get back to the communities. But to move forward, yeah, I think, you and Craig are onto something there of coming up with, bylaws or something. I guess I didn't realize there wasn't nothing like that either anything official in writing, which is more what you're doing is putting it in writing, I guess. And I assume there'd be no problem with the legal department for the city of Green Bay to do something like that, Dave, or you run that by them? Or
I don't think we necessarily need to run anything. I mean, maybe if we have a draft, and I mean, if there's something that we're questioning if it's legal to do, I mean, by obvious, I think it would be a good idea to run it by them. But remember that, and I provided a copy of that ordinance about it, and in this, and where I'm not exactly sure here what it says it, but in essence, right here, self-government. Traffic Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission shall make its own rules regarding meetings, and it's cut off on my sheet here, but Commission Bay can be, because of violence. In essence, it's the same. You make up your own rules. We're a commission, not a committee, which is made up of all elected officials or alders. We have one appointed alder, and the rest are appointed by the mayor and approved by Common Council. So I think it would be a good idea. And I think, you know, eventually I'm not going to be here, you know, I'm not getting any younger. And I think, you know, definitely before I would ever leave, I would, you know, want to leave this in a good place and, you know, want people to, you know, I want this committee or commission to be much better than it was when I got here.
Yeah, go ahead, Barb.
Thank you. I would say though, I would 100% run this by legal. There's nothing, you should not be doing bylaws or changing things or making your own rules. It really needs to be put, at least run by legal, because they put things in the proper format. They use the proper language. Not that we're incapable of doing it, but we're not attorneys. Unless you guys are attorneys, and I just don't know that. But I served on the Police and Fire Commission, for example, and hours, although these meetings do go kind of long, but that was just tons and tons of hours and interviewing every patrolman. And it was when we were searching for a chief last time. And of course you don't get any payment for it, but you're doing it because you care about your community. That's why people volunteer for these kinds of commissions. But if we would have changed anything, I know we would have run that by legal. So I would encourage you guys to think about doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Craig.
I agree with Alderdorf, but I think we need to give legal some direction on what we want our bylaws to be.
Well, I think we can come up with the bylaws we want. And I think, as Barb said, just get it in legalese so that it flies, whatever. I think you're right. We determine what we want them to say and, you know, come up with a draft, I guess, and then get it legalized, for lack of a better word, that, you know, that we're doing it within the laws, bylaws, and so forth. So go ahead, Dan.
I think the list that, and I wrote it down, I think the list that Dave came up with is an excellent starting point. I would suggest that Alder Stevens or Dave or both approach the legal department with this list as the beginning list, and then for the rest of us to think about any additions to this list that we might not have thought about prior to this meeting.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, if you wanted, Dave, could we put an agenda item on for the next meeting to maybe come up with what you got, and everybody can kind of think about it, and we can kind of talk about it a little more when everybody's had some time to think about what they might want the bylaws to look like, and talk about it at the next meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, probably the easiest way to do that is just to postpone the item to next month or hold the item till next month. That way it just keeps it on the agenda until we get it done.
Okay. Yeah, we could discuss it next month. Everybody have a month to think about what they might want the bylaws to look like.
Right. And the bottom line is that, you know, we don't necessarily need to even have anything on council report until there's actually something that they take action on. So if you just hold the item, that keeps the discussion going. This allows Craig and I to work with legal and to get something in draft form to present to the commissioners.
Okay. To me, that sounds like a plan.
Yep.
Anybody got any other comments on that, or? Okay. I think between you and Craig, I just wanted to comment that you guys, sounds like you did some work behind the scenes on the vacancies. That was one of my items to talk about here to wrap up tonight, to see where we're at with that. So I would say kudos to Dave and Craig for taking the initiative and, you know, making something happen there, which it sounds like you've done. So that's a good job, guys. So would be my 3 cents worth there. That we're hopefully they will.
You're welcome, and you didn't get to see our little marketing card that we put together. Remember, Craig?
We're working on something. We were.
Yeah, and then I tweaked some stuff or whatever, and because he had some question on some signs that we were actually thinking about going out to social media. I think you were going to do that maybe just on your own elected official page or something, weren't you, Craig?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we didn't have to get to that point, but yeah, no. I mean, as you all know, when Bridget put in a resignation, I mean, we kind of were at code red then. It's like, wow, but we can't miss anyone from a meeting at all.
Yeah.
So,
you know, if we get 2 people, that'd be great, because there's times where people are got something else going on. I mean, I think everybody is pretty much takes this pretty seriously who's on the committee right now. And, you know, unless they got something really pressing, they're here for the meetings or whatever. You know, Zoom wise, you can be almost anywhere and be a part of the meeting too. So that, you know, right. But at some point, I think we'll probably get back to meeting in person, I would think. Isn't that down the road type thing, Dave?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking that's going to happen sooner rather than later. I mean, there's different COVID guidelines that, you know, that were just actually released today, at least for City Hall and everything like that. So, you know, some of those things are being relaxed. And I think that the ability to meet in person is going to come sooner rather than later. And as soon as I get any definitive directive on that, you know, I'll bring it up for discussion, or, you know, I'll let you know if we have that ability to do that. So I think that we're as it sits right now, we're going to be virtual for June, but if something changes between now and then, I can let you know. And if we have some people that want to participate in person, I think we may have that ability.
Just a question of the members we have here left, or is everybody kind of want to get back to meeting in person, or the virtual is, I mean, it's kind of nice in one way. I mean, you can be almost anywhere and be at the meeting too. So, I mean, what's everybody's thought? Would you rather be in person, or do you want to continue virtually? Which we probably would have the option. I mean, if we determine our bylaws, we could kind of come up with how we want to meet too, I would think. So just a thought.
I think in person gives a lot better opportunity for discussion about any issue. Zoom, it's kind of hard at times. So I think in person would definitely be best, but maybe have, if people are going to be busy or something like that, keep the option open for virtual part of it. But I think if we could meet in person, that'd probably be the most beneficial.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Let's meet in person, then I don't have to deal with stupid phone anymore.
All right, I know what your thinking is then. So, yeah, no, I think it's, you know, over the years, I think you'd have more people involved from, you know, if you have a hot item issue, or not so much hot item, but just people feel more free to comment and come to the meetings. I think what we find, get more community involvement, which is what it's all about. Is, you know, you got something going on, you want to talk about it, or you've got an opinion, you should be able to share it, you know, easily. And you're the one guy earlier tonight who, you know, you came to the meeting just to try to get something to happen for an item he had. So he sounded a little frustrated with the process or whatever. So I think, you know, probably in person is the way long term. So, but with that, I should move on to informational F, unless anybody else got anything you want to talk about here with.
Actually,
we need to vote on 7, don't we?
Yeah, you need a motion.
Okay.
A motion to hold, right? For further
so,
discussion.
Yes. Yep.
Motion to hold for further discussion.
And do I hear a second? Motion made, seconded. Hold for further discussion for the next meeting. So, all in favor?
Aye.
One.
Just so you know, I've been ready to go back to City Hall like 3 months ago.
All right. So noted. With that, I would entertain a motion. The next meeting is Monday, June 21st. I don't know if anybody knows they're not going to be there or at this point, but if not, we'll see you all.
Oh, yeah, I may not be.
Okay.
Because so we have there's protection and policy that same night. So
is there? Okay. Shouldn't be an issue if we have the new members in by that time, Dave. That shouldn't be a problem with new members by that time, should it?
No, as long as we have minimum of 4.
4. Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn then.
So move.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Take care all. Be safe, and we'll talk in a month.